Welcome to the Stack of Stats podcast. I'm Pam Maldonado with Kelly Stewart, aka Kelly in Vegas, bringing you all of the analytics behind the NFL bets. Kelly, my girl, it is week 4, 4-1 last week, and that's because we didn't agree on anything. Should that be our new strategy?
Basically, if we don't agree, life is really good. When we're like, hell yeah, this is 5-0, we go like 2-3.
And that's exactly what happened. And that's actually our second 4-1 of the season. There's been 3 weeks. We hit 4-1 in week 1, 4-1 last week. Last year we had only 5 win weeks. So maybe this year's already doing better. We're 10-5 overall. Things are feeling good. How do you like our process? How are you feeling about this week's card?
Well, that's a lot of questions in one. I like our process. I was actually talking to my buddy Chris about it. He and I do a similar contest, but with college, and we were kind of just back and forth. Also, we have a survivor, and I just told him, I was like, listen, don't overthink it. And we were back and forth on the survivor this morning, and I literally downloaded an app that, because of course nobody has change anymore, that flips a coin. Because I was like, okay, listen, we both have good arguments for survivor picks. Let's not, we're clearly overthinking this. Let's stop doing that. And he laughed and he goes, that's a great idea. Flipped a coin. And now we're going with Eagles and survivor. So kind of one of those things where you've got to have some strategy. And I think you and I have a really good strategy. That is my best bet, your best bet. That is going through the other 3 together and agreeing as a group. I mean, I've seen different people approach these contests kind of different ways over the years, whether it's you pick 2, I pick 2, and then we pick one together, whether it's each guy picks 1 and there's a group of 5, like I'm doing with some of the Wager Talk guys. There's a lot of different strategies, but I think the 2 best bets and then talking through the other 3 games makes the most sense to me.
It definitely does. And it seems to be working for us. So we're going to keep it rolling. So as a reminder of what it is that we are doing, we are making 5 against the spread picks each week in the NFL. Automatically in is Kelly's best bet. Automatically in is my best bet. And then together we come up with the other 3. Combined best bets are 5-1 on what are we? Yeah, 5-1 so far this season. My 3-0, your 2-1. I love it. I love our process. I hate your best bet this week.
Oh, I know. Everybody does. Everybody hates it. I mean, so the other question you asked me is, what do I think of this week's card? Let me grab my notes really quick, sitting on this table. I had
hoop emoji.
Basically, I had 4 games that I even like wanted to get involved in whatsoever. Okay. So it's not like I loved anything this week. This is not a best bet that I'm like going to run out and only bet. There was kind of like a 1A and a 1B, and I went with the math play, and that's the Patriots plus 10.5. I bet it. It's the only game I bet early
for the contest.
It is 9.5 in the contest, and I wanted to address that. So I bet it plus 10.5 on Monday. Full disclosure, I'm clearly not at my house. I'm at my boyfriend's aunt's house in Northern Illinois, so I can work out of the Barstool Chicago office. And I just said, you know what? I don't have the energy to go down to the office today. It's an hour and a half each way commute. So bear with me if there's any tech issues, anything like that. But I know that it is a difference between 10.5 and 9.5. 10 is, we won't call it a key number, but it does happen. And I'm going to say this, full disclosure, 1% of NFL games land on 10. So I'm not that concerned about it. The drop off from 10.5 to 9.5 is not that significant. I did personally bet it on Monday at 10.5. But when you text me this morning, hey, it's 9.5 in the contest, I said, I'm not really that worried about it. It's not like 7.5 to 7 or 3.5 to 3 here. So this is just a pure numbers play, a pure play on Bill Belichick, a pure fade on the Packers coming off that really hard fought game where Aaron Rodgers doesn't win in Florida. Well, maybe now he does. And the Packers also going to London next week is the last one. And I know I wrote it down after the Vikings non-cover on Sunday. They're headed to London this week. Teams are 25, 35, and 1 prior to playing in London. Now, maybe we can blame some of that on the Jaguars, but I do think that for the most part, we know exactly what we're going to get from Brian Hoyer here, right? Brian Hoyer, 14-year veteran, NFL. He's been all over the place.
Yeah.
21, 18, and 1 against the spread. It's not like he's had some really great, significant career, but I'll be really honest with you. I haven't been that high on Mac Jones either. I do think that this is an Aaron Rodgers-led team that is going to go back to the NFC Championship, but I also believe that this is a team that doesn't step on other teams' throats. Does that make sense? Like I did lay the 10 with them. You and I both laid the 10 with them. I think that was 2 weeks ago. I said that they were one of the bets that I did really like. That was because it was a divisional game and Aaron Rodgers owns the Bears, bottom line. I'm still very high on this Packers team, but I think that this is just kind of a letdown spot, if you will, as I mentioned, and it's purely just a numbers play. That I made the game 7.5. So at 10.5 on Monday, I'm like, okay, I have to play it at 9.5. There's still some value there. And I know you hate it. And I'm sure that you have some really great reasons why, but this, like I said, this was a tough week. There was not a lot I loved.
I hate it just because I'm scared of it because it's Aaron Rodgers at home, and Brian Hoyer, who I don't know that much about. Like I know he's been around for a long time. We've seen him as a backup, but last year he had only 11 passing attempts, 1 touchdown. So and no picks. That's good. So I mean, I feel like you're talking about you're not impressed with Mac Jones. What's the line with Mac Jones? Versus now, we know now that the line is 9.5 with Hoyer.
So the line with Mac Jones is probably 7.5. And that's just because this is, again, a Packers team that I think is now starting to supersede expectations. Obviously, I was on them last week, but a lot of people said there's no way they're not going in to Tampa Bay. And I said, let's look at all these injuries and other things of that nature. And also, I think I can never discredit Bill Belichick. I think I've done that enough in my career where I'm not going to solely just bet on Bill Belichick because he's Bill Belichick, but I'm also not going to say, oh, well, this is a significant amount of drop off to bet the other side. I think that this is a game where, again, New England turned it over 3 times last week with the Ravens. I had them in a teaser and I said, God, what is going on here? And that's kind of what I mean about
that was our one that we got wrong of our 5, the Patriots. Yep. We were on the Patriots last week. It looked like they had the opportunities there to get the cover. They had multiple red zone trips, converted. It was just really frustrating. Goals or turnarounds. Yeah. Maybe Mac Jones was the injured in the game. So that's why he's not playing this week, though he did show up at practice today. So I don't know what to make of that. But
yeah, showing up at practice is interesting because as far as I'm hearing, he's going to have surgery. So, I hadn't heard anything definitively, obviously. And Bill Belichick, one of those coaches that just keeps everything under tight lock and key. So at least he doesn't lie to us like Andy Reid. I'll say that much.
Well, that is Kelly's best bet. It is the Patriots plus 9.5 at the Packers with Brian Hoyer likely to play. My best bet, you're going to hate it, just how I hated yours. You have Eagles on Survivor. I have bet Jaguars plus 6.5 and on the money line plus 225, and I comfortably make this bet and I'm excited for it. It is my best bet of the week. It's the Doug Peterson bowl game. It is the Jags. So for me, I have a couple of questions surrounding this game, but there was one nugget that I loved that gave me the conviction to go ahead and fire on the Jags. But both of these teams, I think are kind of like questionable. We have a Jags rushing defense that is first in the league. Well, the Colts running back in Jonathan Taylor, he only had 9 rushing attempts. How good of a defense are you really if you have Jonathan Taylor who only, that's my attempt. He kind of didn't have enough. He's had 21 plus in the other 2 games. So it's beyond me why the Colts didn't run him more. So I'm not sure about that. And then how good is the Jags rushing defense really? Because the other 2 opponents that they faced was Washington and Chargers. Neither of those teams run, but it's the same thing against the Eagles. 6th best in the league against the pass. How good is your passing defense? You were up 31-14 against the Lions and you only won by 3. Why? Because the Eagles defense gave up 240 total yards to the Lions, 6.8 yards per pass. And then they got Kirk Cousins in primetime, who we know is trash. And then you got Carson Wentz. So I think there's a little bit of which team is a more legitimate defense? We're going to find out. But what I do know is that I love Trevor Lawrence, the progression that he has made. You can say the same thing about Jalen Hurts, of course, but Trevor Lawrence this time last year, I mean, he was sacked 32 times on the season, 17 thrown interceptions. So far, he's only been sacked twice, 1 interception through 3 games. He has largely made the improvements. I know you can always talk about the Chargers and Justin Herbert. He didn't have ribs and he broke in and everyone was out. If the Jags had they could have easily let either of these teams back in, but they went in and cleaned up shop. They never let their foot off the gas. And the nugget the reason why I wanted to back it was because Jalen Hurts has yet to be under pressure. The Jags defense is tied in the league for the most interceptions. You can say it's the quarterbacks, whatever. Still, it is a skill set to be able to get some of those interceptions. Jalen Hurts, third best throwing from a clean pocket, 28th in completion percentage when under pressure. Last year, the Eagles faced only 3 defenses that were top 5 in takeaways. Do you know how well Jalen Hurts did in those games? 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And now you're going up against Jags defense that is leading for the most interceptions in the league. That alone gives me a reason to be like, Jalen Hurts looks fucking good right now. Who have you played? You're about to find out.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me, Pam. I did lean towards Eagles -6.5. I'm not going to bet this game. And obviously, I just mentioned that we have Eagles and Survivor. I'm not concerned about the Eagles losing this game, but what they do have to do is score in the second half, which is what they haven't done. I do think probably, I won't say definitively, but I would say with fairly good confidence that the best team in the NFC right now is the Eagles. And I've had so many people text me that are Eagles fans, like, can you bet the Eagles to win the Super Bowl for me? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yep, that's how I know that they're getting a little too public. And that is kind of something that I do like to consider here is how high and low are we on these teams? Well, last year with Urban Meyer, everybody was super high on Jacksonville. All of a sudden they get a real coach in Doug Peterson and nobody's high on Jacksonville, who's just quietly 2-1 and just smacked the Chargers in the mouth in the soccer stadium.
Because it's the perception of Justin Herbert being injured, no weapons. All of the offensive players got hurt. So no one's buying into that it's a legitimate defense.
Literally, Pam, the last time Jacksonville won on the road, you were probably in like 6th grade. Like, so that was a huge game for them. And that's my only real concern is certain times, and this is more in college than I would say NFL, but certain times, like, you got to keep a tight lock on your locker room. And I think Doug Peterson can do that. I think he's going to keep everybody focused and be like, good team win on the road. Congratulations, guys. But now we got to get back to business in Philadelphia. My 2 survivors were actually between the Packers and between the Eagles. And so when Chris and I just decided, like, it was just tough. I was like, well, do we sprinkle a little bit on the Patriots money line if we go Packers, knowing that the whole world is going to be on the Packers this week? Now this kind of gives me a little solace, and maybe I'll join you on that Jags money line as kind of a little hedge for our survivor pick.
You're talking about the Eagles not scoring in the second half, and that is correct. That is absolutely correct. The Eagles have only scored 14 points in the second half through 3 games, 2 touchdowns in week 1, and that was against the Lions. They failed to score a single point in the second half the last 2 weeks. So now either this is showing a complete dominance that they have in week 1, so they just like chill out in the second half, or there's maybe coaching problems. But I think this is not, I'm going to say coaching problems, but it's just
maybe the coaches are adjusting good at halftime. I mean, we did see this against the Vikings, but right. Still that Eagles defense, was it Kirk Cousins? Was it the Eagles defense? That's still yet to be seen. I'm going to probably go with it was Kirk Cousins.
In prime time.
Yes.
In prime time. Well, then those are our 2 best bets that are automatically locked in. Neither of us like the other one. It is Patriots +9.5 for the Packers and Jags +6.5 at Eagles. I love that we're opposite on both of those. I wouldn't say opposite. It's just scary is what I'll say. You're probably opposite of mine, but
no, I literally did not bet the Eagles. I crossed them off. They were on my long list. To start the week, I thought the line looked, anytime we've talked about it, anytime it's not 7 or 7.5 and it's 6.5, it's like the bookmakers are like, come on.
And hasn't moved.
And so that is something that I do think is part of my handicap as well. So just things to keep an eye on throughout the season. I'm totally on board with Jags +6. So don't worry, I do not hate it, but I know exactly why you hate Patriots.
I am going to be wearing these sweet, sweet babies. Come Sunday, I wear them every Sunday, and it's been bringing me luck so far. So
I'm just so sad that Uncle Andy didn't save you that Jags purse that was still in the cellophane wrapper from the dump.
I told you I can find it for like $3 on Amazon right now. So it's no harm, no foul. So then those are 2 games. We don't agree. You only sent me a really short list, which is crazy because you usually send me like 10 games. There's only like 3. We're opposite on a couple of them. There is one of them that we did agree on. So I'm automatically putting that in, but I want to talk about it. It is the Cardinals +1.5 at the Panthers. You agreed with that. I agreed with that. That was my second best bet that I had. For me, it's who has Arizona played? The Chiefs and the Rams. Who has the Panthers played? Jacoby Brissett, Daniel Jones, and Jameis Winston. Done. What do you got?
Yeah, listen, this is a Cardinals team that I think, like you said, played some tough games. They had that crazy comeback win against the Raiders. If you remember, I wasn't on the game, but it was just one of those, you saw the tide turn. It was one of those evening games. I had no other action. So I thought, okay, I'll turn it on. And part of me was like, okay, just don't get the 2-point conversion and cover for all the Cardinals backers. And then in overtime, they were able to get the win. I like this team because they put up a fight. And that says enough to me, willing to back them here on the road, where guess what? They are as a road dog. Cliff Kingsbury, terrible at home, 14-4-1 as a road underdog during the regular season with the Cardinals. And that was just right there enough to just push me over the edge. I think this game should be a pick 'em. So if you throw a little bit of Carolina home field advantage, makes it +1, which is what I think the market's at right now. So +1.5 in the contest. I thought they were a great teaser spot. And I do think that Arizona is going to be, they're basically doing the opposite of what they did last year, right? Last year, they started off red hot and then just fell flat on their face. This year, it's kind of the opposite. I do think that this Panthers team looks a little bit improved, but when you still have Baker Mayfield under center, lots of crazy things can happen. Carolina also hasn't really been great at home, just 5-3 straight up and against the spread with Matt Rule. I'm not sold on him as a favorite. Like as an underdog, maybe we can talk about the Panthers. As a favorite, we're looking at a whole different animal here. So I'm glad that you agree with me here on Arizona.
I don't think that Panthers have any bit of home field advantage because it's Baker Mayfield and who cares? But you have Kyler Murray. I think this is a really good potential spot for Kyler Murray to go back to the Kyler Murray ways of seeing him run all over the place, up and down the field with James Conner. Carolina's rushing defense still garbage. Gave up 141 yards to Browns running back and Nick Chubb. 26-24 loss in week 1. Last year against, and I know it's last year, but they haven't played a mobile quarterback yet this year. So I looked at 2021 against a mobile quarterback in Eagles, Jalen Hurts. The Panthers gave up 2 rushing scores and lost 21-18. Running back, bless you. Running back Christian McCaffrey, he's back on the injury list. This guy cannot just stay healthy. But he's been on the injury list every week and still has back-to-back 100-yard rushing games.
I love how they throw a video up today on social media of him like running sprints. I'm like, if he's hurt, why do we have him running sprints?
Back-to-back 100-yard games. I think it's going to be a battle of who runs better. And I'm going to give it when you have a 1-2 punch. Kyler Murray on the legs. He'll get it done. Anytime touchdown score. I love Kyler Murray in this spot against a Panthers rushing defense. So then that's 3 games that we have locked in. Now we don't agree on anything else. So let me throw out one option for you, which I'm actually surprised wasn't on your list, but I am. Can I entice you into some Chiefs pick at the Bucks? I think this Tampa Bay offense, I know it's plagued by injuries right now. They don't have some of the offensive weapons, and he hasn't played Brady with some of his offensive wide receivers, but this Tampa Bay offense is cold, largely contributed to that. But in 36 total drives for Tampa, only 5 of those 36 drives have reached the red zone, and only 3 of those 5 that reached the red zone have they scored a touchdown. The Chiefs, they are 3rd best in early down conversions. Their first downs, their second downs, they're converting into first downs, second downs, touchdowns. This is a Super Bowl repeat, in my opinion, because you have the Chiefs who lost against the Bucks because of a terrible offensive line. What do the Bucks got right now? A terrible offensive line. And we've seen what that type of repercussions that has. Brady doesn't look comfortable. He can't find his spots. They are slow snail pace. It's not an up tempo offense and by any means. It is the defense that is keeping the Bucks team alive, but it's also Mahomes who they had their chances to win last week. We're on the Colts and they had their chances last week and they just like kind of played a little bit sloppy. I think they cleaned some of that up against the Tampa Bay offense that can't get anything going right now.
Full disclosure, I love betting against Tom Brady in primetime, so say no more. But here's my concerns.
Yeah.
The Chiefs have something really odd going on with Eric Bieniemy, with
no Tyreek Hill,
with Patrick Mahomes. It's like a very odd coaching issue. And I don't have like something that says like, oh, I know this is exactly what's going on in Kansas City. There's some hostility, if you will. Right. That concerns me, number 1, about the Chiefs. Number 2, the Chiefs defense gives up a ton of points, and they've always been their liability and their Achilles heel. If Patrick Mahomes can outscore Tom Brady, which by all means they should be able to, Tom Brady has just been horribly, like you said, slow offensively. This team has just not shown me much. They scored a couple of touchdowns against the Cowboys, scored one against the Packers. Like, this is just not a team that's exciting to watch, as you mentioned, with the injuries.
And they have no ground game going. The Bucs, they cannot.
And guess
because of that,
where they've been all week long. They have been all week long in Miami, had to get displaced from their homes from the hurricane. Let me tell you how screwed up I've been, Pam, since I've been in Chicago this week. I have been so disoriented, unorganized. I'm all over the place, scrambling now on a Friday afternoon to make sure that I have everything done that I needed to get done for this week. It throws you off your game 100%. And so normally I would be looking at the primetime home dog, talking about the Bucs. I don't like the Bucs in this spot at all. If you like the Chiefs and it's a pick 'em in this situation, I'm with you. I think the Chiefs losing 2 games in a row is going to be pretty catastrophic for this team. Like I said, it's already kind of got some turmoil going on. And as we've seen with the Bucs, I'm just not buying the hype, particularly in primetime.
You're talking about maybe not liking the Chiefs defense. I'm actually been impressed with their defense. They held Jonathan Taylor last week. They only allowed him less than 100 rushing yards. It's only 3 yards per carry. So either Jonathan Taylor just kind of had a fluke of an off game, or this Chiefs defense is a little bit more legit than it has been in the last couple of seasons. And it's now their offense that's not really necessarily clicking. You give me a pick'em situation with, I know the Bucs are potentially getting back some of its key playmakers, but Brady is the type of player that kind of needs some reps to build up to finding that binky again. He's gonna take him like a couple of games to get back into the swing of things. And it's not like exactly they're going up against, you have a bad offensive line. Well, the Chiefs right now are putting up the 5th most sack percentage. So struggle, Brady, continue, might happen.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. Harrison Butker being hurt for the Indianapolis game probably cost them the win. And as of right now, he did not practice yesterday, and that is a concern for me as well. But yeah, I'm not rushing to the window here to bet the Bucs in any form or fashion.
Okay.
Not only based on what I've seen recently, but coupled with everything else they've been dealing with.
All right, so let's go ahead and leave that as an option. We'll have the Chiefs as an option. Can I entice you then in the Titans plus 3.5 at the Colts? Why have I been fading the Colts each and every week? They were 0-8 in week 1 in their history. Fade at Houston. They lost. It was a tied game. Then I faded the Colts again in week 2 because against the Jags, because they were 0-6 straight up and against the spread against the Jags since 2015. Shutout loss. Now against Tennessee, like I said, some of these trends are no longer trends. They become problems if it's history repeating itself more frequently. Against the Titans, the Colts are 0-3 straight up and against the spread in the last 3, 1-4 straight up and against the spread in the last 5. Now, we were on the Colts against the Chiefs. The Colts, they were outgained. They lost in yards per play, 5.2 to 3.8. Indianapolis has Jonathan Taylor. He had only 71 total rushing yards on 21 carries. He's kind of been a boomer bust, which is crazy. But Matt Ryan, he was still sacked 5 times. You can rely on him to get sacks. And the Colts, they don't necessarily have a big pass rush. 29th in pressure rate, 28th in the blitz. Ryan Tannehill, when kept clean, 68% completion, 9 yards per pass attempt. Derrick Henry coming off his best game yet. He had 143 rushing yards and a score against the Raiders. So you have a Colts team that doesn't apply pressure to the quarterback. Spells good for Ryan Tannehill. You have Derrick Henry, who's one of the best running backs in the league, maybe finding his groove again right in the nick of time, and they have a terrible history. Colts, Titans plus 3.5 at Colts. What do you think?
I'm literally trying to figure out why I don't have this game on my list, Pam. And maybe that was just something I happened to overlook, maybe because I was trying to handicap on a 24-hour drive to Chicago. That being said, I'm with you. Matt Ryan is my age. I know exactly how he feels every morning when he gets out of bed after being sacked 12 times, 4 interceptions, and fumbled 7 times. The guy has nothing left to give in his soul. Like, I mean, he has just been obliterated for the first 3 weeks. I do think that if you just feed the ball to Jonathan Taylor, that can equate to a Colts win. That doesn't equate to a Colts cover to me, though. I do think this is going to be a run fest with Derrick Henry. I'm with you. I literally am just sitting here going, why don't I have this on my list? I like Tennessee as well here. It makes a lot of sense to me. You know, I love those divisional road dogs. They've covered it almost a 60% clip for, 5 or 6 seasons now. I'd have to pull it up. I'd have to ask Ralph to get me the new data, but it's something that I've been looking at and wanting to back every single week. I'm not a big Ryan Tannehill fan. Let's be honest here, but I have seen some promise from him before. And I do like this pass defense for the Titans. I do think that they're going to step up a little bit more. I know that they kind of have a couple cluster injuries in the linebacker position, but 3.5 here seems like way too many points for a Colts team that just isn't explosive, isn't exciting. I actually think this looks like a dead under game as well. And maybe I'm a little square for that, but I could just see this if it just run the ball with JT, run the ball with Henry, I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm purely looking at the quarterback situation with the offensive line, and you give me a team that doesn't have a pass rush against a Ryan Tannehill who does extremely well when he's not under pressure. That sounds like it's a good opportunity for a +3.5 cover. Would you like to go ahead and lock that in, or do you want to keep talking?
Yeah, we have to. And I can't believe I haven't bet it yet. Luckily for me, it's still 3.5. And that's what I'm currently doing
nobody
right
wants
now.
to touch these teams. Nobody wants.
That's fair.
They want to look at the Chiefs. They want to look at the Rent or San Francisco. They want to look at the more the.
Yeah, but like Pam, there's sharp groups that are sitting here purely playing on numbers. Like I'm really confused as this Titans defense stepped up a little bit last week. Like we've seen it happen. And I guess I'm literally going, I make it 20, I make the game 21, 19.5. So that still gives us an Indianapolis cover, but I would literally say that this line is at least a point too high.
Lock it in. Titans +3.5 at Colts. Okay, then that's all I got. Okay. You and I didn't have a lot to go off of like you.
I'm honestly okay with locking in the Chiefs. The more I start looking at this game, the more it makes sense, especially and normally like when it was 2.5, I definitely would have put the Bucs in a teaser. I did not, just because of the unknown situations, right? Were they going to play in Tampa? Were they going to play in Minnesota? And once I got the text from my buddy that works at Raymond James Stadium, he said, oh, they're definitely playing in Tampa this week. What are your thoughts? And I'm looking at it going +1, pick them wherever it is across the board. It looks very easy to take Chiefs pick them here. That is the only concern of mine, but I'm with you here. I think the Cardinals, the Titans, the Pats, the Jags, and the Chiefs look like our 5.
Well, if you don't want to do the Chiefs, let's just go ahead and go run through the list really quickly.
Okay. So I've got the Ravens +3.5.
Doesn't that, okay. We're talking about right now how easy it looks to take X team. Tell me, everyone is talking about Lamar Jackson, MVP. He's the best player, and you're giving me 3.5 at home.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely not talking about an MVP. I do like the Ravens. My Ravens bet to win the NFC North is looking really nice right now. That being said, this is a Bills team that I think we saw show some vulnerability last week. And yes, they were on the road in Miami, facing a Miami team that is, well, now is more banged up as we saw last night, but isn't the best defensive team, yet they still struggled. And now they're in back-to-back road games. I just wonder who they are to be a 3.5 point favorite. This is their 3rd road game in 4 weeks, Pam. And that's where it gets really tough for me, just because there's a lot of injuries to this offensive line.
That's what I'm saying. It looks too easy. So what am I missing?
It does. I don't know. I'll be honest with you.
I'm not somebody who believes in traps, but I mean.
Oh, I definitely believe in traps. Don't you worry. I'll believe in all the traps for both of us, because I definitely think the bookmakers bait you in some of these situations.
So then this looks really like a bait. Like, hey,
it does. Ravens 5-0 against the spread as a home dog. And their last 5 attempts, like give me points with Harbaugh at home. And I bet I've been on at least 4 of those. That's just full disclosure. I don't want to say, I would say this is the other game that I bet. This would be my second best bet, if you will. But I also, again, don't love this week's card. So I bet 2 games in real life. I have the Cardinals in a teaser, and I'm going to bet the Titans now that we just spoke about it. Again, still not sure why I didn't have it on my list. I will say this, I'm looking at the trends and angles from the Bet On It show this week. And I may have to text Chris about our Eagles pick because the play against spot here, which is a 67% fade, is against the Eagles. I got all my notes on one sheet this week and it's very chaotic, but I'm sitting here looking at that going, interesting. All right.
I'm telling you, I took the Jags on the money line and I make it comfortable. And I think they kind of win. I'll throw it out there. I don't think it's going to be a close game. I would say that the Jags win. I'm going to do an alt line of like the -7 Jags.
Whoa.
I feel pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good about my Jags team this year. I'm like,
so outside of the Ravens, I don't have anything else. That's just full disclosure. I wanted to make a case for the Saints in London, but obviously now Andy Dalton's going to be the quarterback. And
Correct.
I would say from a healthy Jameis Winston, he's a 3.5 point drop off, but from an injured Jameis Winston, no. And that's kind of the question I have. And so right now, also
that's fine. You liked Washington. I liked Dallas. That's why we're staying away.
And I ended up crossing. Because I love those divisional road dogs. You know,
but tell me that this isn't the biggest, easiest mismatch in all of NFL that we're probably ever going to get. The number one pressure rate team in Dallas against the last in league in QB protection, Washington. Tell me that he's not going to have just like 4 interceptions, sacked 5 times. He can still put up points, of course, Carson Wentz, but I'm going to be more inclined to believe that the Dallas defense is going to clean up shop. But just because it's a divisional game with Cooper Rush, that's why the point is so low.
Yeah, I mean, could the Commanders look any worse last week? Literally, I'm standing in the sports book in Detroit with everybody, and I don't know a single person in there with Commanders ticket. And I'm looking around, I'm talking to some of the guys. I'm like, how come nobody wants to bet the Commanders? Oh, I thought about it, divisional road dogs, looking at this, looking at that. Terry McLaurin was like the only bright spot last week. This team is absolutely garbage. If any reason why to play against, I'd be playing against Cooper Rush as a favorite. He's been able to be a serviceable quarterback thus far. I just have to wonder when the bottom really falls out, because maybe you keep Dak as your starter, right? Because you paid him all these millions of dollars, but how are you going to have a quarterback that's your backup quarterback that at least for 2 weeks now has appeared better than your starter? There's got to be something there that I'm missing. And as far as that goes,
I do think that the reason why they're doing so well is because Kellen Moore has done a really great job of play calling based off of the quarterback that you have. The same type of conservativeness that they have with Cooper Rush right now. As soon as Dak Prescott comes back, they're going to revamp the old playbook and say, okay, now we're going to go for those deep passes. Now we're going to do.
And I don't think that's the right move. I really don't. I mean, I'm not a big Mike McCarthy fan, never have been. And I think that's why we're hearing Sean Payton rumors to the Cowboys already starting to rumble. I don't get it. I think you do with what you've got, right? And that's Cooper Rush and that conservative game plan, but he doesn't make mistakes.
Right.
And I'm waiting to see a mistake be made, but you're maybe right. Maybe that Kellen Moore is not going to set him up to make mistakes, which is huge as well.
So then stay away game is what you're saying.
Oh yeah. I don't want any part of it.
How about then just to run through the options, the Browns -1 against the Falcons, another mismatch. I can
see the Browns. I know a couple of guys that are really sharp that are on the Browns this week on the road against that same, Falcons team, where I think Marcus Mariota is doing a pretty decent job. We definitely know why Matt Ryan is in Indianapolis, and that's because maybe he was part of Atlanta's problems. I think this is like a pick'em type game. So to lay 1 on the road is a little iffy to me. This is a Browns team that I haven't been that impressed with. But through 3 games, they've been able to, at least run the ball with Nick Chubb.
Okay, well then then one last option, and before we just like plug in the Chiefs by default, what about the Rams +1.5 at the 49ers? And it's because last week, 49ers, they kind of stink. I'm not gonna ever say that they're a really great team, but I'm just talking about so San Francisco 4-7 straight up and against the spread as a home favorite since the 2020 season. Matthew Stafford coming off of his best game. He threw for 10 yards per pass, and that's because there was dropped touchdown passes from both Allen Robinson and Cooper Kupp. 49ers defense is first in the league for passing yards allowed. But again, who have you faced? Justin Fields, Geno Smith. Those are two quarterbacks that are literally last and second to the last for passing yards per game. And 2 of the 3 times that Stafford has faced the 49ers, those are one-score games. The one game that the Rams lost last season was 31-10, was because he had like a broken back, a sprained ankle, literally the week before. So it was one of those like caught him in a bad situation spots, more so than it was the 49ers outplayed them. Stafford coming off a good performance.
I think this looks like a coin flip game, but I can tell you right now, the difference maker is going to be to watch that Denver tape. And if you can get that pass rush like we saw last week, you can throw Jimmy G off his game so easy. I mean, his blind side, oh my, I couldn't believe. He gets rattled, and he gets rattled really quickly. And I do think that the Rams have that ability. Obviously, they're missing Von Miller this year, but outside of that, I think that they're going to win the turnover battle. And that's the key to winning on the road, right? This is a San Francisco team that couldn't have looked any worse against the Denver Broncos. And I was on the Broncos plus 7.5 in a teaser. I can't believe how sick to my stomach I was to even think I wasn't going to cover that teaser. But then obviously Broncos somehow came back with Russell Wilson. God, they're in a world of hurt. We'll see. Maybe Samuel will have a breakout game here, because we didn't really see a lot from him this year, but I could see him against this Rams secondary. If you want me to pick between the Rams and the Chiefs, I would really have to bust out the coin flip app again, Pam.
How about let's just go with the Chiefs, because we know for sure that there is legitimate concerns with the offense in the Bucs. And at least the Chiefs have a good defense so far from what we've seen. So go with what's been consistent, and consistent is both defenses. So now if the X factor is the offense, even though even if there's no Tyreek Hill, it is still Chiefs in my opinion, purely because Brady has kind of looked lost. Eventually it's going to click. I'm just not sure that it's immediate this week.
I'm with you.
Plug it in.
Yep, let's do it.
Chiefs as a pick. Bucks. Okay, so then those are our 5 against the spread picks. Patriots plus 9.5 at Packers, Kelly's best bet. Jaguars plus 6.5 at Eagles, my best bet. And then together we are coming up with the Cardinals plus 1.5 at Panthers, Titans plus 3.5 at Colts, and the Chiefs as a pick to the Bucks. I once again really like.
Give me all the road teams, Pam.
All the road teams, and you know what? Every week I'm going to say it. Speak it into existence until eventually it's going to happen, right? Eventually,
I mean, it has to.
5-0. You would think. But do make sure to follow Kelly on Twitter at KellyInVegas. You can follow me at Twitter at Pamela M35. Do make sure to like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think about our picks or which ones you are rolling with instead. Kelly, my girl, thanks for doing this again. I will see you next week.
Heck yeah. Let's go. 5-0, baby.